I found out after. Because someone said, "Oh, why were you there?"
Sorry.
That's fine.
Someone would have to tell me.
I'll make sure.
There's a little friction. Hey. I found out my cousin. And I'm like, oh yeah, I heard. And I'm it's okay. I'm not mad.
All I know about is what I read this year.
It's also stuff like my son, you know, where I think I have it on my John's at Benson. And he actually wrote
I remember seeing communications or something about it.
and he wanted
Doing whatever joint events or
and he put in there about my
I'm surprised because
I hear his
immediately shocked.
and I can't talk.
So when we were first dating, she actually had a house, and when we got married, she was inconsistent.
I was surprised you
She's done the process. It's weird.
No idea. Are you guys doing the award here? Okay. That's gonna move. You're taking pictures.
I want to bail. I was off at 7. I want to.
Hey, go here.
Here's for my boy Willie.
Oh, yeah?
Going to Tuesday. I'll be home Tuesday night. Just a weekend. You're off for the weekend.
Girls' weekend?
Just don't drown.
You're getting eaten by a shark.
Jellyfish or
Well,
pets, don't take it home.
apparently Karst sister. So we made it.
You also get that.
Why is everybody looking at me?
Like, is that a bum at the back?
What is new is that
Dedicated to my will.
when my main things to
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Board of Commissioners meeting in Hampton Township. Proof of publication is available for anybody who wants to see it. Let me just make sure this is on. It is. In advance, let me ask anybody who wants to speak on any issue this evening, please use that microphone. Apparently, we're having a problem with the one over there. So I'll ask you to just come up here, and before we start anything else, please join us in the pledge of allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Township Manager Keith Metz is home ill, but he's going to participate in the meeting via phone, so if we wait a couple of seconds. Officer Rachel Mandruziak. Delighted to have her join the police force, and Chief, if you'll join me. Here. You gotta turn around. Face the city. If you would, please raise your hand, right hand, and say it after me. I, and say your name.
I, Rachel Mandruziak,
Being duly appointed as a police officer
being duly appointed as a police officer
of Hampton Township in Cumberland County,
of Hampton Township in Cumberland County,
Pennsylvania, do solemnly swear
Pennsylvania, do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution and laws of this Commonwealth,
the Constitution and laws of this Commonwealth,
the ordinances of Hampton Township,
the ordinances of Hampton Township,
and I will discharge the duties of this office with fidelity.
and I will discharge the duties of this office with fidelity.
Welcome. I'll, will you sign
We
this?
want pictures of you and him, or her and him.
Just. Well, husband and mom, delighted to have you here, and delighted to have you. Thank you. Thank you. And then another pretty special event, Chief, you'll wait up with me. It's rare that we have the opportunity to present this kind of award, the life-saving award to two of our first responders, two officers, patrol officers, Todd and McIntyre. I understand Officer McIntyre can't be here this evening. But you can. I don't want to stay next to him, he's too close. Anyway, I'd like to read this. Whereas Officer William Todd serves with the Hampton Township Police Department as a patrol officer. Whereas on July 18, 2019, at 8:41 p.m., Officer Todd and Officer Michael McIntyre were dispatched to EMS call where the patient was experiencing cardiac arrest. Whereas upon arrival, Officer Todd and Officer McIntyre assessed the scene, utilized the AED, and administered CPR, which resulted in the patient regaining a pulse prior to EMS arrival. Whereas on July 23, 2019, the patient's physician advised the patient had a previously undiagnosed heart condition, and that the officer's actions clearly saved the patient's life. Now therefore be it resolved, for his quick thinking and heroic action, Officer Toth is being presented the Police Department Life-Saving Award, adopted this 29th day of August 2019 by the Board of Township Commissioners of the Township of Hampton, and an identical one to Officer McIntyre. So,
This second one in what, 3 years? 3 to 4 years? So, well done. Yes.
all the good stuff is gone. Public hearing, request consideration for zoning ordinance text amendment, chapter 27, 27, section 1817, E1 and 1817, E2, regarding the requirements for self-storage facility, on-site live-in manager, request submitted by Ryan Hattie. Someone here?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Would you please come to the microphone?
Bram Hadding, 5130 East Trundle Road.
Okay. Can you tell us just briefly what it is?
Well, the prior ordinance, and we've had two discussions in the past that the board has agreed on. When it was adopted initially, in the old days, they had a live-in on-site manager, the self-storage facility prior to the new automated security systems and the gate controls and whatnot. So my request was to have the ordinance changed to where an on-site manager at the owner's discretion would be permitted but not required. So it's at the discretion of the ownership. Obviously, there's some issues potentially with an on-site manager. In the event that they wouldn't work out, you would have to go through a process to potentially do an eviction or whatnot, and there could be an interruption with the potential client base. So that's the request.
My recollection from prior discussions is not having an on-site manager is not uncommon around.
Nobody has an on-site manager anymore. In fact, the way it was adopted into the township's ordinance prior, there was really no prior experience. So a similar facility of mine basically came to the township and said, this is what we want to do, and that was adopted into the ordinance. But yes, with today's video surveillance and off-site cloud-based storage and the new modernized lighting and gate controls and license plate readers, it's not done anymore.
Okay. Anybody from the board have any questions or comments? If not, anybody from the audience? If not, Nate?
Again, it's a pretty simple request here. The planning commission unanimously recommended approval, and I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve ordinance number 2019-13, amending chapter 27 of the Township and code of ordinances with respect to living management. Second.
Motion second. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. The other item listed under public hearing is being tabled at the request of Jeanette Fish, LBD Nice Render, Barbara Musselman, and Nancy Ambrose at their request. So with that, I would declare the hearing closed. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the board for everything as well. I appreciate your support.
Thank you. Audience participation, anything that's not on the agenda. Carolyn?
Carolyn Pfeiffer, representing Hampton Township and the Frederickson Library Board. Just to update you from the services that are being provided to the Hampton Township residents, the children's librarians provided 2 STEM workshops in Hampton Township in the month of August, and there were 20 children and 4 adults attending each of the STEM workshops. The library was pleased. I hope the township officials are pleased also. Everything else at the library is going fine. Mr. Jim Grandin, a resident of Hampton Township, was the lead on the fundraising drive for the Business and Career Center, the lower level entrance, and the new reading patio that's being installed in the library. And he and his committee raised over $600,000 to fund these projects. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, moving on, approval of minutes of the August 1, 2019 meeting. I need a motion. Goes to you, John. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Next, planning commission, Nate.
First item on our planning commission agenda is the final land development plan for Brambles West, located at the end of Crossgate Drive. This is someone who represents the plan, so please come to the podium, take your name and the record.
Good evening, Charlie Courtney with McNeese. So we've, following the last commissioners meeting, there are a couple things that we were to look into. We've resubmitted the plans. I understand at this point, the plans are pretty clean from a land development plan review process, review standpoint. Stormwater, I think we're pretty clean. Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we're pretty close on that. And then the traffic impact study, Grove Miller has signed off on that as well. So we're pretty clean. The three items that that the board wanted us to look into, one was PennDOT approval for the access. So we did reach out to PennDOT. PennDOT said, that access, there is an HOP for it. They said it's been, some time since we've issued that permit, so they'd like to take a look at it. So we will be submitting a scoping application with PennDOT. What that results in, I guess, will remain to be seen. It might be nothing. It might just simply be updating the permit.
Can you explain the scoping process here?
Yeah.
So that you understand exactly.
Yep, I'm sorry. So the beginning of any PennDOT process is a scoping application. So you submit an application to PennDOT with township input. That scoping application, the scope means the evaluation of the roadways that PennDOT wants you to look at for under the traffic impact study. So we have a traffic impact study at this point. We would anticipate that the scope of intersections that PennDOT would want us to look at is consistent with the traffic study. I think PennDOT's going to focus on the current Karst Gates Drive intersection with Carlisle Pike. That application will identify the proposed trip generation for this project. Again, we're a little bit ahead of time because usually you don't have a traffic study before you have a scoping meeting with PennDOT, but we'll have all of that information. But it's in that process that PennDOT will look at it and decide whether any updates have to be done from a permitting standpoint, when any geometric changes have to be made at Cross Gates Drive. But that's the first step in the PennDOT review process. The second step is a traffic impact study. Again, we've already done it, so I think the scoping and the traffic study are going to be, fairly compressed. And then if any improvements are required, then PennDOT, the third step would actually be the roadway design. So the engineer would prepare plans. Those plans would be submitted to PennDOT and ultimately approved by PennDOT. So that's the process. So the scoping application is really kind of PennDOT's first look at, what really do they think should be done, if anything. And we're more than happy to agree as a condition of a plan approval that we would obtain from PennDOT whatever approval PennDOT deems necessary. It might not be an actual HOP since we already have one, but if it is, so be it. The second issue was bus stop. So we've kind of come up with two solutions. One is that it's kind of hard to see on this plan, but this is the southwestern corner of the property. So we would have am I right, Ron? Yeah, that's right. So we would have thank you. We would have extending from the existing sidewalk an improved pathway that would kind of hug this edge of the property and come out. Now this is the existing office building and parking lot. Then we would have that pathway hug the parking lot to kind of head out towards Richard Drive. And just so we can get to a public street that's probably the shortest path for students. And so we've been working with that neighboring property owner. We're not going to have any problems getting an easement so that we can have a pedestrian access to get out to Richard Drive. That's one solution. Another solution potentially is, the school district typically isn't coming into, private streets and so forth. There was our recollection on the Brambles on the other side of the highway, that the school district was willing to go into that site because there was adequate circulation. Now that ultimately wasn't done for whatever reason, but it wasn't because the school district was unwilling to do so. This site's been designed to accommodate fire truck and school bus access. So a school bus, if it came in here, it could circulate and come back out. That might not be the solution. It might be better just kind of getting the kids out, walking on a pathway beside the parking lot, not to Richard Drive. But we've got two options. One of those we'll implement. The third issue was sewer capacity. We attended the authority meeting. The authority has authorized that the capacity for the project. They do have a special purpose component of a tapping fee. I think it's an additional $860 per EDU. So we've agreed to pay that. So the sewer capacity issue. So those were the three things that we were to look into. We've done that. Like I said, I think the plans are pretty clean at this point. Happy to answer any questions, but otherwise we'd ask the board to approve it.
Jeremy, my recollection is I think we received some kind of a response from the school district where either they or we reached out to them.
Right. I believe there was an indication from the school district that we would not put a bus stop on the Carlisle Pike. I believe that was the correspondence we received from the school district.
Did they address anything about going into the development? I guess not.
I don't know specifically that. I do know in my experience the school district has indicated that they will not go into private streets. We've had a number of times where
Commissioner Beanstalk, Mike Willits from the school district confirmed that they do not utilize private streets for access of school buses, and in addition to what Jeremy's indicated, there's no expectation that a bus stop would be approved on the Carlisle Pike.
Then that's going to leave us with the option through the parking lot. So that's why we have two options.
Anybody from the board have any?
If I can continue here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Charlie, you've requested several waivers. Can you go through that, please?
Yeah, there's two waivers, right around two. So one relates to marginal access streets. It's kind of a quirky provision in the ordinance that is intended to provide a marginal access road to other properties here. This is an infill site. You've got 581, you've got the park in, and you've got existing residential development, all of which have their own access points. So kind of the whole basis for that type of provision isn't served here, and this property has its own access. So this really isn't a situation where it's desirable or necessary to have a marginal access road. So that is the first waiver. I believe staff has recommended approval of that.
Jeremy, would you speak to that?
yeah, I don't read it as a quirky provision, but I would read it as a particular case it might be.
Fair enough. Fair enough. The second is a stormwater waiver. I'll let Ron explain that.
Yeah, the ordinance requires infiltration of the 2-year storm event, difference between the post-development flow and the pre-development volume. We have provided a geotechnical report after doing testing of the site, and the recommendations of the geotech were not to infiltrate because of the Karst topography. So we offered that to the township for review. We believe staff is in support of that. Jeremy, speak for that.
Yes, so the concept of a waiver for the volume control is something that we've often seen in the karst geology in the southern part of the township, so we do support that. We do have some technical things to go through relative to pre to post discharge rates and dewatering rates, but I don't think there's anything there that we can't work through. There's some technical questions that I have that I believe won't have any significant impact or change to the stormwater facilities.
And the NPDS permit for the site has been issued.
Okay. Pretty sure there's going to be some comments, concerns here about the proposal from the public. Can you address any public outreach since the last meeting or the last several meetings on this matter?
Well, I think I think there was an initial public outreach on the project. I think following that meeting, we proposed some additional supplemental landscaping. Beyond that, we haven't had any, additional meetings. I think we've gotten additional public comments since we've been in here. I think the comments that relate to kind of the site design and buffering, I think those have been addressed to the best we can. I mean, we are adding buffering and so forth on the site that's, you know, beyond the ordinance requirements. Beyond that, you know, its comments are, you know, don't want the project.